This is The Strange Recital, a podcast about fiction which questions the nature of reality.
Men blather about the perfidy of women. 16-year-old Grace Torrance doesn't know about that, but she knows her exclamatory booblets, woe goddamn legs, and ultramarine eyes can get her in more trouble than she's already had from blatherers and daddy creeps. So the first thing she does with her pocket change is buy a pair of coveralls and a loose denim shirt at Modell's. Sleeping arrangements come harder. The first 9 nights in Manhattan, she sleeps in rock shafts in the Freedom Tunnel leading from Penn Station to points north. Chris Freedom Pape and other graffiti artists had turned it into a museum. Bolts of natural light illuminate their work, and at night the homeless bivouac in this Flip the Bird museum. Grace feels safer here than in Aronskill. That first night, as she huddles in the roots of utilities conduits, her mangy blue parka over her head, the Queen visits her creche. Nobody calls her Queenie, nobody knows her name, and nobody ever hears a sound from her. She's almost a giant. Her eyes are holes of December sky. She hands Grace a flap of cold pizza, crouches in front of her and stares. Grace touches the Queen's tow hair. Her subjects rustle behind the Queen. They've never seen anyone touch her. A train rattles their bones, each mustard window taking someone somewhere. She can move on. She doesn't have to go back to her unsafe bed. The troutful Aronskill had gone on a rampage, tearing away the gimcrack pine bridge between their island and the shore. Then a surge uprooted their moldy cabin and left it teetering on its spongy sills. Poe had been too drunk to notice. She waded 15 feet to the shore and never looked back. But that's the trouble. Others may never look back, but Grace already knows that she remembers every day of her life. Brown trout in a rock pool, strands of hair in a brush, the expressions of girls peeing at school, books on a shelf, stains on a sheet, damn near everything. Nobody knows she remembers, and when she tells herself she remembers, she answers, "I'm left-handed," as if that had something to do with it. Maybe it does. But if it does, she didn't learn anything about it from the computer in the Phoenicia library. Nobody would believe it, and if she proved it, she'd just prove she's a freak, which she already knows. When you remember everything, you know how much people lie. Well, it's not so much lying as confabulating. It's like Lego. There isn't just one combination that works, is there? And that's what counts, what works, a contraption that works. So nobody's ever going to feel okay around Grace. Nobody with what they call emotional intelligence. Because nobody swallows a lie deadpan. They just pretend they do. Our lives are contraptions, and sometimes, splat, we fall off and land face down in the truth. And if you're going to remember everything, you have to decide how to build your library, because you don't have a basement deep enough to hide the images and thoughts, and you never will run out of room. So what will your library look like? It will look like your life. Maybe that's why Oscar Wilde said we pretty much have the faces we deserve by the time we're 40. She's okay leaving Poe to 6-point bucks, largemouth bass, and cheap whiskey, but dead is safer. Some people are gnats and motes. They pester the corner of your eye. You have to bawl to wash them out. Grace never got Poe Torrance into focus. He wouldn't be looked at head-on. She doesn't remember crying, but now she knows how to get him out of her eye. This blind sax man here in front of her is going to rinse her eyes with his steep and mournful riffs. She smiles her loony jack-o'-lantern grin to think that, unlike her mother Sally, who hid her tips under a rock in the woods to escape the valley, she'd left with pocket change and thumbed her way on 18-wheelers to the city. This sax man's notes are better than Spider-Man's webs. She can ride them through keyholes and windows. She can soar above the spotty sycamores and piss on wrong 'uns, as Sally called them. I need some enemies, but what if I'm not cut out for them? Who can you be without them? God has enemies. What about mine? I had Poe, but I deserve a better enemy. I had Heather Romanelli on the basketball team, but I nailed her into that shiny floor. Where are my enemies? I'm serious. I gotta get some. A serious person has enemies. I'm a serious person now, 16 going on 30. The blind man picks up a $5 bill out of his sax case and hands it to her. What does this tell her? He has the radar. She has the presence. It tells her she's not the invisible type. She feels seen. Not my legs, not Cager's peaks at my crotch, not my pointies, but me, and whoever the hell I'm going to be. No, you earned it, she tells him. Yeah, but today you need it, girl, and I need you to come back and keep drawing, 'cause people like to watch us. They like watching you listening to me. You get that, don't you, girl? How do you know I'm drawing? How do you know I'm a girl? How do you know who's watching? You, a tall, skinny gal. I see the way we all see, but we scared to admit we see like that. I'm not as blind as most of the people who listen to me. But you know that, don't you? You got eyes back of your head, and we both know why, don't we? Everybody got eyes all over you, girl, but they don't know how many you got on them, do they? I wish I could show you. I'll bet you do. I feel your ether. I smell your heart. What do they smell like? Lilac and New York Bay at 4 a.m. I got your job for you, your profession. Make everything you draw for me. I'll know it. I'll always know it. That green-eyed gal is making pictures for me. I know you a green-eyed gal. You know how I know it? Easy swimming, that's how. Tide going out. Dark eyes, tide coming in. Oh, yeah, didn't know that, did you? Out, way out, gal. I know that about you. You going way out. You lived your whole life to come here today. That's the way life is. We all get to have this day, this one day, and most of us don't even know it. And there you are knowing it, sitting in front of me knowing it. You drawing it, that's how much you know it, gal. That's a whole lot of knowing. What's your name? Can't have it. Not now. It'd just get in the way, 'cause we're mostly not our names. Fact is, we're mostly not what people think we is. But I got a name for you, gal. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna make you some mad sax for it. Your name be Boudica. Boudica. Killed a bunch of Roman soldiers and bankers. You go, Boudica. That'd be your secret name from now on. You go to the library and read all about her, and in your New York Bay heart, don't ever call yourself nothing else. That's why you here. That's why you found me in this Union Square Park, to hear that name. You hear everything you're ever going to hear from this here sax, but you want it? Boudica, she don't ever forget a thing she hear, not one damn thing, and nothing she ever going to see look the same again. Listen to me. Lean over here. You going to change every damn thing you look at. We all do, but you got to take responsibility for it. That's the trick. And when you do, the world says, oh my, I can trust that Boudica. I'll give her all kinds of things. Oh yeah, 'cause that gal, she copped to what she see. And with that, he let rip Blind Lemon Jefferson's Bleeding Gums. remembers everything she hears. How did he get that right? Nobody else ever got it. Boudica dreams of girls like her who remember everything. What do they do? How do they live? Over and over in her head, she outlines them, colors them, dances with them. But they never speak. They never sing. One girl has electric hands that shock Boudica. Another smells like fresh hay. No boys. Just sisters. Silent sisters.
That was Grace, written and read by Djelloul Marbrook.
Today we're meeting upstairs in Barnes & Noble on Union Square in Manhattan, and I can see a guy playing sax on the sidewalk down there with his case open for change, so it's kind of a perfect place to discuss today's story. Djelloul, welcome.
And thanks for coming by and doing this.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Your story that we're featuring on this episode is an excerpt from a novella that was published with another of your novellas in a volume called Mean Bastards Making Nice from Leaky Boot Press. We don't typically use excerpts from longer works on The Strange Recital, but this piece is in sync with what we're doing, both because of the quality of the writing and because it fits our goal to question standard perceptions of reality. I'm wondering what you think, Djelloul. Why do you suppose we felt that it meets that goal?
Well, I think we're always dealing with the authorized version of things, the official narrative, and we call that reality. And for me, the whole idea of what is and what is not reality and what realism is a bogus concept. It's a received idea. We think we know more than we actually do know. We don't know what reality is. Actually, the fact that we're so certain that we know, that we tell people to be realistic, that's actually our hubris talking, and it's a monumental hubris. We should be more concerned, in my view, with piercing the veil of illusion. We live in a world of illusion. So I don't feel that I take liberties in fiction with reality so much as I assume that our society is really full of it when we think we know what reality is.
Okay, so that idea is really the underpinning of this story. It's built right into the fabric of it, is what I hear you're saying. Now, in the section that we featured here, there's a blind man who has some type of second sight. That's one way that conventional reality might be questioned, but I think there's something else as well. And I referred to it on my blog when I reviewed your book. I think of it as something I called fierce subjectivity. It's a use of language that I find to be highly personal, idiosyncratic, dreamlike, even hallucinatory. Simply reading your fiction undermines conventional ideas of experience and of storytelling.
I think it comes from a long period in my life of being immersed in Sufism and also in Christian mysticism, as well as a lifelong exposure to surrealism. My mother was a a prominent surrealist artist. So I naturally absorbed a great deal of surrealist thinking, and of course surrealism challenges our ideas. But I think also it was rooted in the childhood experience of carrying on a dialogue within myself of someone who actually was me, which left open the question of who I was, since obviously the person who was talking to me in my head was bearing my name. But I think for that reason there may be that dreamlike quality in the work, and also its idiosyncratic aspect. Psychiatrists would perhaps think of it as a disorder, but my own theory is that we're all disordered. It's just a matter of how we express our disorder and how we cope with it.
Yeah.
You know, in film school they teach about Sergei Eisenstein, the major pioneer of the art cinema. For him, meaning came not from the sequential logic of shots, but from what he called the collision of adjacent images in editing. It seems to me that the power of your prose is similar. It comes from the continual collision of unexpected words, phrases, images, ideas. Was that your intention?
Yes, very much. Yeah, and it comports with what Einstein called spooky action at a distance, and there's now a book out by George Musser that talks about that. And physicists are thinking now that actually we live in a universe in which collisions, and also our personal encounters, for example, combust and account for what happens, so that our encounters are collisions. And in a sense, we live in a kind of collider, and we are therefore always creative.
Sort of along those lines, I wanted to mention this. One thing that I have found that I dislike about so much writing advice that I've seen, especially on the internet, is this idea that a fiction author should be invisible so the story can come through without distraction. To me, your work proves the stupidity of that idea. What would art be if all artists made their expressive style invisible so the subject matter could be seen without distraction? That would mean Van Gogh would have been a photographer taking mundane snapshots on his phone or something. Do you have any thoughts on this subject?
Yeah, I mean, I hope I'm trotting on that idea because I think it's an ephemeral convention. The problem for writers is that, you know, editors and marketers are always buying into these passing dicta. And then the writers have to confront that as they, you know, try to get published and and their work is marketed. There was an interesting film made back, I think it was in 1989. It's Ang Lee's a film called Ride with the Devil. The critics roundly criticized the script because they said it was stilted. It's set in Missouri and Kentucky during the Civil War, and Ang Lee is trying to reproduce what speech might have sounded at that time. And the script is incredibly poetic. And as a matter of fact, it often scans like poetry. If you really study the prosody of that script, you'll see that it's pure poetry. And so because Ang Lee wanted to create this poeticism, he was criticized because it didn't fit with this official narrative, whatever the official narrative is.
Let's go back to a topic you mentioned earlier. I know that your aunt, Irene Rice Pereira, was a prominent modern artist, and your mother, as you mentioned, Juanita Guccione, was a surrealist painter, and her work is being rediscovered today. Say a little more about the kind of impact that those women's work have on your own.
Oh, a huge impact. I think I saw in dealing with my mother, well, with Irene too, the difficulty that, of course, that women have in the world in general and in the art world, which is highly misogynistic, still is for that matter. And that influenced me a great deal because I could see I had no father. I had a stepfather, but I could see what women were up against, and I could also see their heroism. And so unlike quite a few male writers, I feel very comfortable writing about women because they've played basically a much greater influence in my life than men have.
Excuse me, sorry. Can I just reach across you and get that book there?
What, this one about Picasso?
Yes, thanks.
So Picasso, he's rumored to have said something to the effect that art is a lie that tells the truth. Mm-hmm. How does your work fit into that idea, Djelloul?
I think it fits in quite well. We walk around with a ton of received ideas on our heads. You know, Gustave Flaubert, the French novelist, actually wrote a dictionary of received ideas. Today in cyberspace we're calling them memes, but they're these ideas that we've settled upon, and they become reality and they become truth. And I think it's the job of writers, poets, and artists and musicians to challenge them, and to always turn over stones, and to always look behind what is accepted, because quite often the truth is the lie, and vice versa, the lie is the truth.
Well, the lie that tells the truth, that's something we do on the Strange Recital too, like right now, in fact. We're sort of a truth sandwich, wouldn't you say, Tom? We add some lies like bread to make it easier to eat, but the meat is always there on the inside, nutritious and delicious.
Well, it could be meat, or vegetables, with some kind of remoulade or a basil coulis, perhaps. Apparently you should limit your intake of red vegetables to only one portion a week, no bigger than your clenched fist. But then, I might be lying. What's the truth? A sandwich?
Okay, and on that note, we'll be on our way to lunch. Thanks again, Djelloul.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Brent. I'm so happy to have talked to you.
This is The Strange Recital. If you're curious, we have a website, thestrangerecital.com. The saxophone you heard on this episode was played by Peter Bittner. You also heard an old sample of Bill Laswell's from his undocumented collection, and a track called Balti by XJ5000 from their album Gruber, another one of their unreleased records, which remains forever sealed in my private collection. Grace was previously published, along with another novella, in a book called Mean Bastards Making Nice, from Leaky Boot Press. This is episode 17042.